Hello, and welcome to the live stream of consciousness. You are here. I'm so glad that you made it. I am here. I'm glad that I made it back to another Thursday. Today is April 6th. Wow, time is flying. It's April 6th. It's another Thursday. I'm here at the live stream of consciousness, a place that I created to share a friend, a person, always somebody interesting, a great conversation, to basically for me to connect with that person, an opportunity for that, and then for anybody who's out there at this moment listening to connect with both of us and have a collective experience, even if it's not at the same time. If you're watching the replay, welcome as well. Oh, I'm going to ring the bell. If anyone knows, I usually ring that bell when I see somebody subscribe, but tonight is actually a special episode. I don't know if anybody knows. I'm going to ask some questions to anybody who might be watching. All right, there's two questions. One is, why did I ring the bell? What's special about tonight? And the second question is, what's different about this scene right here? There's something different. It's not my hair. Uh, it's something different. I want to see who's observant. If you know the answer, just say it in the chat at any point. If you're joining late and you see this later in the show, just give me an answer and we'll see it. And remind me at the end to tell you if we haven't figured it out yet. Um, so yeah, I'm trying to make the show a little bit more interesting. I just issued a challenge of like what's different in this space or something like that. But tonight I have a cool guest, somebody who I just encountered in life and made a connection to and felt like was a great guest for the show, and to have a conversation with. I see Fun Mommy is taking a guess there, saying the background is different. It's usually darker and more purple. That's not what I'm talking about, and that could be the lighting changes depending on how I move it around here. But that's not it. But welcome, Fun Mommy. I appreciate you being here. New mic too. Nope, it's the same mic. It is actually a little bit lower. I will kind of take that as an answer. Usually, I think it's a little bit closer and like more like that. So I did move it a little bit. I changed where I'm sitting a little bit, but that is not the answer for either one of those questions. But I appreciate participation. That's awesome. Um, Fun Mommy is also saying, thank you. I love your show. Well, thank you, Fun Mommy. It's the first time I'm seeing you in the chat, and welcome. I hope you join in more often. It's definitely fun to interact with the audience and know that there's people out there enjoying the conversation. So, as I was saying, tonight's guest, I met during I think it was an 8-week course. In the Violet Flame with Carla Gitto, who was one of our guests here on the live stream of consciousness. And Ninja Kitty gets a bell for tonight. New glasses. It's actually kind of right. These are old glasses. My glasses broke, so I'm wearing some old glasses in the meantime while I wait for my new ones. But that's what's different. Usually I have these big round ones, and I noticed when I went in this camera, I'm like, oh, something's different. And I had to figure it out. And I did. I figured it out, and that's what it was. So you get a bell for that. But why am I ringing the bell at the beginning of the episode is the other question. And I will tell you, and I have really horribly interrupted the introduction to my guest too many times already. But I met this wonderful woman during a Violet Flame class with Carla, and we just connected. I think there's people that you kind of just you meet, and you during conversations you kind of get glimpses of your reflection. You feel this comfort with that person. You feel like you're vibrating on the same uh frequency in certain ways. Obviously, I think people are constantly changing. Frequencies are constantly changing. So, it could be just a momentary thing, but I think people's frequencies are tuned, to a certain level. And so, you connect and you make a connection. So I made a connection with tonight's guest. And again, thought we would have a great conversation. She is a registered respiratory therapist, which is an allopathic practice, which I learned the meaning for that tonight, which just means kind of a standard medicine practice. but also practices the metaphysical. So things like Reiki and sound healing, things that deal with energy and those great things that we love here at the live stream. So welcome to the show, Miss Cyndi Flowers. How's it going?
Hi, thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for saying yes and being on. I love that. That's a sign that something good is going to happen, right? If we both show up.
Absolutely. Yeah.
and,
And
and
it's a full moon, so
and it's a full
we're
moon.
all
You
set.
know what? That's right. I remember Janice was telling me last night. It's not. It looked so nice last night. And she's like, "Nope, tomorrow's the actual full moon."
That's
Um,
right.
yeah, yeah, awesome, awesome. So, as I said, you are a registered respiratory therapist, and also a metaphysical practitioner. So you kind of heal people in two different types of practices. I definitely want to talk more about that, but you do have to kind of pass the protocols of the live stream of consciousness, which are just a couple of questions, so we can kind of flex our brains and get them on the same page, or get them at least in conversation mode. And the first question is a straightforward, simple one, and that is, what is consciousness? What are we talking about when we say consciousness?
Well, for me, consciousness is collective. We are all one with the central sun, God,
Hmm. Hmm.
and that's a collective consciousness. And we each are just an aspect or a creation of that consciousness.
Hmm. 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 Bing, perfect. I love it.
Mhm.
That's a great concise answer. It's tough when that question's thrown at you, like, there's so many, your mind starts going, but you hit it on the head. I think you know you there's always a little bit of a nuance to the answer. That's, sometimes the answer expands and the perspective that it comes from. Sometimes I'm surprised. Some people come from the collective, some people come from the I am, but they're always a similar description of that, what you just described. So perfect. I love that answer. And then the second part of the question is, uh, just kind of, if you can share a moment, if it is a specific moment, or maybe it's something that you just kind of had an instinct about from birth, but when is it that you realize that reality was not just kind of what they teach you in school, not just the day to day, going to work and being a registered respiratory therapist? That's like, there's more to it than that.
Well, I feel like I actually had that. Um, I guess it's a realization, but also there was a question. I was very young.
Hmm.
I want to say I was probably maybe 7 or 8.
Hmm.
And my grandmother was very spiritual on my mom's side. And was she the, not Scientology, Church of Religious Science.
Hmm.
So she was always very spiritual. And, I would ask her questions. It's like, I was raised in Episcopalian,
Hmm.
which is an offshoot of Catholicism. And I always had trouble with some of this unworthiness aspects of it. And I
Hmm.
even went to the priest one time and the minister there, and I was like,
Hmm.
I have a hard time with this because I
Hmm.
don't really buy into all that. I
Hmm.
don't feel any of us are unworthy.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so I think some of my questions began really young, like that, and it expanded as I grew older. Um, I always felt a little different than other people.
Hmm.
Um, I feel like I couldn't talk about what I would see here because I've always been somewhat clairvoyant. I mean, I didn't recognize it as that as a young child.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
was told I just had a very active imagination.
Hmm.
I was always very empathic. I could feel other people's feelings, and so I'd cry easily. And
Hmm.
so I was just too sensitive.
Hmm.
So I
Hmm.
think some of those aspects happened very young.
Hmm.
But it wasn't until I was probably 16 or so that I actually started recognizing more of my inner knowingness, I
Hmm.
guess you can say,
Hmm.
um, inner purpose.
Hmm.
And so,
You can definitely say that here.
yeah, and it's been a journey. You know, I feel like sometimes we feel like we walk off our path. Like, I know for a while I got into the party scene and all that, but sometimes we have to experience that to be able to share
Sure,
about it and help others.
sure.
Um, so, no need for judgment on that type
Hmm.
of thing.
Absolutely.
We have our lives, we did it. I originally became Reiki certified back in 1988,
Wow.
and I utilized it for quite some time. I belonged to a church that believed in touch healing and spiritual healing,
Hmm. Hmm.
so I would participate in that a lot.
Let me ask you a question about that.
Mhm.
What did it feel like in 1988?
I was kind of labeled a weirdo.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. Uh, um, my family, my mother was always very acceptant.
Hmm.
My brother was very traditional.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I think he was a little bit put off when my mom started asking me to do grace on the holidays because he always did. He was like a member, he was always a member in the church somewhere.
Right, right, right.
Um, but I didn't say an actual prayer. I just spoke what I felt. I felt like I was a channel to say what was needed to be said,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know?
Hmm. Hmm.
So,
But it was you would say a grace. You would be grateful for whatever
ab-
it was about to happen, right? So, and that's what grace is
absolutely.
supposed to be. So, yeah, the essence of grace, you certainly had that. You know what I mean? That's really interesting. That you're saying that. Go ahead. You were about to say something.
Well, and I still have very strong, I mean, sometimes when people walk the metaphysical path, they embrace many religions. I respect many religions,
Right.
but
Right.
there is a part of me that really enjoys the traditional aspect.
Well,
And
yeah,
I
I
give,
think.
I give, I mean, I honor with all my heart and soul
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
our God, the
Hmm.
central sun of all that is,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Jesus the Christ, Mother
Hmm.
Mary,
Hmm.
Saint Germain,
Hmm.
Archangel Michael. They are all very strongly connected to me
Hmm.
right now. And, maybe that was not always so. That
Hmm.
was a lot to do with my Violet Flame
Hmm.
courses.
Hmm.
And now I'm in the third Violet Flame class,
Nice.
which I have to say has changed my perception in life
Oh, really? How so?
so much. Um, I feel like I'm more acceptant and I'm more connected, more solidly connected, and not so reactionary to the world around me.
Hmm. Interesting because I feel like, I mean, the person that I know from the Violet Flame classes and our own interactions, the vibration that I feel isn't that at all. I never even would have pegged you as being reactionary, and you I think what resonated between you and I is the sense of calm, the sense of knowing, the sense of non-judgment. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I mean,
Oh,
you and I are totally different people. You know what I mean? Totally different, come from totally different walks of life and all of this stuff, but we have so much in common, and that's what drew us together. Even when you were telling your story about the hardship that you were going through, which maybe we'll get into, and some of the hardships that I went through, like, it just brought us together because we could relate to each other's losses, um, as much to each other's gains, you know what I mean, as much to
Right.
the wisdom that we had achieved from that, you know.
Right. And we gain knowledge from,
Mhm,
no matter how much it feels like a hardship, we gain knowledge from it.
mhm,
I
mhm,
feel like when I lost my husband unexpectedly about 7 years ago,
mhm,
and I became very angry. And I
mhm,
was very reactionary
mhm,
to things.
mhm,
I was
mhm.
just triggered by everything. And I recognized that. So I just really did a lot of shadow work, a lot of inner work. Um, and then I went back and became recertified in Reiki.
Mhm.
Um,
Awesome.
and then, with the violet flame. And now I'm doing sound healing as well, which has been,
Mhm.
sound to me has always been like, when I'm in meditation, I can feel and hear the sound of the universe.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
to me, that is what I feel when
Love that description.
there's an ebb and a flow
Yeah,
that
yeah.
happens. And I feel that connection when I do my singing bowls.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, the singing bowls are definitely something amazing to experience. It's really interesting. I've kind of compared it. It's like this ancient technology, you know. It's really an incredible connection to yourself, I think, which is, and source, you know, within yourself. Because when I first experienced the bowls, and I've said this before on the show, like I felt like the sound was coming from inside of me, as well as you know, I was floating in it. You know what I mean?
Well, it
So it was,
is because you
yeah,
resonate to that
yeah,
frequency.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's each, like the ones I have, each are the chakras.
Hmm,
I mean, there's other ones you can get.
hmm,
There's one
hmm,
that's tuned to just see, which is if you only are going to do one bowl, that's the one you would do.
hmm, hmm,
Um,
hmm.
and I'm also doing tuning forks, and then there is some pyramids that I'm going to be working with too, which I have
Awesome.
not heard of before. So when I learn those and I
Mhm.
experience some more, I will share that with you.
Awesome.
But I just feel like there's such a place in the world for this. And even,
Oh,
I'm
absolutely.
a neonatal pediatric specialist. So
Okay.
I work with neonates and mostly babies.
Hmm.
Um, and I just ask that when I'm with my patients, I ask my higher self and source, God,
Hmm, hmm,
to channel what that baby needs at that
hmm,
moment.
hmm, hmm.
And you can do that by asking permission and do it, and they'll take what they need and or not.
Right.
But I've never had anybody reject it.
Right. Wow, that's awesome. I love that. We haven't really even talked much about it, but I can feel it in just the way you're talking about it. You know, the vibration and the connection that you have to it. Um, and it's something actually very, very interesting to me. And again, it's interesting. I'm thinking when as I say things and the different scenes that happen. But this whole idea of ancient technology, right? Um,
Mhm.
it, it's proven, you know, we've talked about on the show here, and I'm sure you're very familiar with cymatics. And you know, it's proven, like there's a visual proof that you can do easily at home by playing a frequency and putting sand on a plate and watching that sand form itself based on the frequency that you're playing into perfectly symmetrical geometric patterns, sacred geometry. um
Absolutely. And there is I can't remember his name.
mhm.
I read it a long time ago. It had to do with water and vibration
Right, right.
and how the water crystal.
Matsuyo, or a Japanese, the Japanese guy. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, those, and see, those experiments are fascinating when he was like saying hateful words versus loving words into water and then crystallizing it. Yeah, I mean, and again, so what's so fascinating about that to me is that there is when I say ancient technology, there is no real technology involved, right? No electronic digital technology involved, but there is a very significant effect of frequency on the physicality of our atoms, right? I mean, to me, that is just such a simple yet so significant, right? In just in science and in application of how that could be used to cure cancer, to just address so many different issues. And I just learned this week on the Fool's Journey, which is another broadcast I do with a tarot reader. Um, that each chakra was associated with a certain frequency. I didn't know that before, so
Mhm.
I don't have my notes in front of me, but there's a certain note associated with each chakra. Which, when you said you had the bowls for each chakra, it made sense to me. I was like, oh well, each note, obviously. So
Right.
let's
And,
talk about that. Tell us
I,
about how does it work?
well, um, I would love when I have the proper microphone, because I am going to start doing some Zooms with it.
Awesome.
But the problem I haven't, I'm kind of technically challenged with some of these things.
Okay.
So what I would like is to find a microphone that actually can pick up
Hmm. Hmm.
the sound frequency, because there's a vibration that's also involved
Hmm.
when you're playing tuning forks or bowls. You literally in your body can feel the vibration.
Absolutely.
So I'm not sure if there's a microphone available that would literally translate that.
I could help you look into that. We'll talk after the show. I
Oh,
could help
I'd
you with
love
that.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I would love to be able to help you facilitate doing that over Zoom. It's a tough thing. I know if you I've had them people play them on my show, and I just have to mute my mic so that the feedback doesn't come through my mic, and it's worked pretty well. So if you wanted to try to play it and just use your phone mic, that would be cool. But no pressure there. But I'm just fascinated with the idea of how come there isn't more scientific study around this and application of it. I mean, I know it's becoming really popular and accepted now as not like, oh, that's weird. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? People are like, oh, well,
A
obviously
little bit
it's
woo woo. Yeah.
right, right. I mean, it's much more accepted now. So, I mean,
Well, even my own daughter, she's
mhm,
always been kind of like, well, that's my mom. and,
right.
um, and one of her friends took her to a sound bath,
Mm-hmm,
and she was like, that was incredible. I'm
mm-hmm,
like, well, okay.
mm-hmm,
Now am I like whack job? And she was really excited about me becoming a sound healer at that point. And
mm-hmm,
I think until people actually experience some of it, it's really difficult, because when you try to intellectually um, process it,
mm-hmm,
it doesn't really make sense.
mm-hmm,
But once you experience it and you can feel that vibration in your body, um, yeah,
mm-hmm,
there is
mm-hmm.
no deflecting it or saying that it doesn't exist, because you're going to feel.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, absolutely. And I feel like sound healing is similar to meditation. It's kind of like it's different for everybody, and it can even be a little bit different every time you experience it. There are nuances to it that
Oh,
are taking you to different places in your body that you're not used to, in your mind and your consciousness. We have a great question. Leslie is here. What's up, Leslie? Good to see you. And she says, is it important to know about the 440 versus 432 tuning when it comes to the bowls that they make? That's an amazing question. Maybe we can talk a little bit to that. Do you have anything about that you want to?
okay. Well, my understanding often is not, unless you're spending a great deal of money, most of them are not tuned exactly. So you add water to
Hmm.
some of them to create the frequency you need.
Hmm.
But my understanding has been that um, there's not a huge difference between them
Hmm.
as far as healing. Now,
Really?
there's people that are going to be naysayers and say that's not true, but the research I have done has said they both of those hertz work.
Okay,
Um,
no, that's interesting to know. I mean, I've certainly heard
there's
stuff,
people that
and
say one is better than the other,
right, right. Well,
and I've read both sides.
do you know, and maybe you're familiar with this, and maybe you're not. I have heard stories about a what's the word I'm looking for? Oh my god, I can't believe the word is slipping my mind. A very orchestrated movement to change the standard tuning from 432. What is the standard tuning now? 432, right? Or 440 is the standard tuning. I think it's 432. But there was a theory, and it was labeled a conspiracy theory, that it was changed by like Nazi Germany to unsettle the
Control
mind.
people.
Yeah, to kind of unsettle the mind, right? Like the natural tuning was, more in tune with the earth and all of those things. Nefarious is not the word I was looking for, but it's a good one. Intentional is the word I was looking for. That there was an intentional movement to change that to affect the spiritual abilities and the receptive abilities of human. Do you know anything about that, or
I actually don't.
okay?
That's an interesting theory,
Yeah.
but honestly, I don't know that I buy that. Just
Again,
because,
and I don't, it's these days I don't listen to everything as,
right.
oh my god, listen to this, did you ever read this? It's because it could just be misinformation, but certainly,
And
like you
maybe
said, it
I
was
just
interesting.
don't have the knowledge to encompass it. I
Right,
mean, I'll
right,
accept that too.
right.
From my knowledge, what I understand,
Mhm.
you know, both are equally. And honestly, I think my bowls are 440.
Okay, and do you have like an instrument to measure the frequency so that you can tune them exactly?
There's an app for it,
An
and I
app,
would
so
actually
it's like
have to look it
it's like
up.
a
But
tuner, a tuner.
you can get an app that will measure for you. And like I bought, as you know, when I met you, I lost my home and everything I owned in
Mhm,
Hurricane Ian.
mhm,
And then I broke my fingers on my right hand,
mhm,
which is my dominant hand. So I had to live off my savings for a while.
mhm.
So
And this
what I
was
could,
very shortly after losing your husband, right, or no?
my husband I lost about 7 years ago.
Oh, okay, okay.
But
I
I lost my mom last spring, and then I lost
Okay, I
my
remember when we were
50
talking
year
about
old
it, there was a
dearest
lot
friend.
of, yeah, there was a lot of loss and
And I had
craziness.
to put my dog down. So
Right.
quite a bit this
Yes,
year, or last year.
quite a bit,
It's
yes.
been really challenging, but I have to say, and a lot of it has to do with the violet flame. And I have to give credit just to myself as well. A lot of the
Mhm,
shadow work I've done.
mhm,
I do a lot of the shadow work with Teal Swan and recognized that so much of that programming that's within me that was
mhm,
preventing me from being accepted and moving forward and not feeling worthy or
right,
um, whatever it could be. And um, I just know. And
mhm,
honestly, since I have just known, money has been flowing to me to create my home. I'm building a new home. So
amazing, amazing,
um, I've been
yes,
very blessed, and I feel like it's not like it was like handed to me. I
mhm,
I had to jump through a whole lot of hoops for it,
mhm,
but
absolutely,
yeah, I feel like as long as you truly know inside, and
mhm.
there's a peace that goes with it, that knowing that it may not come in the ways you believe, but it will come, and it has for me.
Absolutely. I love how you're saying that, because you're not being very specific, but you're just saying if you know what I mean? And you just know. And I totally resonate with that. And I love also, I mean, it's obviously unfortunate, these things that people go through, and the story that you told about all of these things that you went through. But when I meet people like you who are kind of have gone through that, and have just such an amazing light in their energy, and just like you said, they just know, and that's, I think, the reflection, just seeing that in you. It's just so refreshing to be like, wow, look at what you've been through and where you are. And I mean, it gives a lot of hope for humanity in general, because humanity is kind of like at that point, like all that stuff you went through, that's what humanity is going through right now. Just this horrible, purge of horribleness, whatever it is,
I don't,
and
yeah, I agree. It's something else. Nothing like
right.
I've ever experienced. But
No, me neither in
you
life.
have to stay in your own frequency
Yeah,
and in your own lane and not allow yourself to get deterred by it.
sure.
Um, but
Well, I believe
I
that
have
we're
to
like a
say,
microcosm, of that. So you're a microcosm of that, and meaning that, once you go through that bad shit, you're this amazing light, and you can persevere, and you can, you know, hold your head up, and I feel like humanity in general has that to look forward to, which is a good thing. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
no, no, no worries. No, I feel like sometimes, I mean, if I wrote a book on my life, you'd be like, there's no way that happened to one person. But
Hmm.
I feel like the purpose that I have here right now, and it may change,
Hmm.
but I created a group called Phoenix Rising, and it was to help people process grief and loss.
Hmm.
Because I went so far off the rails after losing my husband,
Hmm.
where my I tried to drown it in alcohol for a
Hmm.
while, and that didn't really work too well for me. Um, and so then I found my way back, and I don't know if I should say my way back, because it's not like I was ever lost, really. It was
Hmm.
an experience I was going through.
Hmm. Hmm.
But by me processing all these losses and these things that have happened to me, I can help others process theirs,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
you know,
So
because I experienced it. I know what it feels like.
right. So let me ask you a question in a way. I mean, and I've been actually talking about this a lot lately, about just like soul contracts and why people are here. So in a way, the fact that your husband died and put you into this place, it was almost like you needed to go through those things in order to be who you are now.
I
Um,
agree. Yeah.
yeah.
And then all the losses I've had, even this year, I lost,
Hmm. Hmm.
everything dear to me.
Right.
I shouldn't say everything, but many things dear to me,
A
because I
lot.
still,
Yeah.
my poor parrot was in my home during Hurricane Ian, because I was
Hmm.
evacuating there,
Hmm.
and I'm working in St. Petersburg, and I was evacuating to my home in Fort Myers when I got the evacuation there,
Hmm.
and no one could go get him out of my home.
Hmm.
Fortunately, I had a double cage, but the whole storm, I surrounded him with the white light of Christ. I uplifted him, and my bird survived. My home didn't, but my
Hmm.
bird did.
Hmm. Hmm.
And my daughter got in there the next day and had to go through water, and
Hmm.
she saved my bird.
That's crazy.
But
Wow.
I just that alone really, it makes me really a believer on how powerful we really are
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
when we use the energy of Christ consciousness and of the source.
Right. So earlier you mentioned Christ consciousness. You mentioned Archangel Michael. Mentioned the purple flame. Tell me about your connection with those entities or energies. Do you have any specific stories of encounters that might
Oh,
be?
holy
Uh,
cow. Yeah. Um, I have to say, since I took the Violet Flame classes, it balanced me and centered me. It literally changed my life. Um, it's like all the healing of that shadow work
mhm,
exponentially healed.
mhm, mhm,
And it's just this deep connection and understanding, and I find that the more I use it, the stronger it is.
hmm,
And I can literally see Master Saint Germain, Mother Mary, Jesus. I can
Mhm,
see them
mhm,
oftentimes throughout my day.
mhm, mhm,
And I don't even get out of bed without saying, I am the violet flame, I am the love God is,
mhm,
until I feel it. And once I
mhm,
feel that connection to God
mhm.
and I see the violet flame, I send it before me and behind me. And I have to tell you, I cannot even express the blessings that have come into my life and um, just how smoothly
Mhm,
everything goes. I don't,
mhm, mhm,
I mean,
mhm.
yeah, there's a couple people here and there that piss me off, and I'll go, oh, I hate people. Sorry,
Sure,
God.
sure.
I don't. Not really. Yes, I do. You know,
I
especially when
love
I'm
when people
driving,
I love when people do that. I didn't mean that. Sorry, God. Take it back. I take it
sorry,
back.
not sorry.
I didn't mean to say it. Yes, I did. I
Right.
love that. That's
Hmm.
really funny. So let's talk about the Violet Flame a little bit because I like I said, that's where I met you. We took a class
Right.
together and I did enjoy it, but for me, I don't have as much of a connection with specific entities. So I certainly resonate with Archangel Michael and Saint Germain and even the Violent Flame. I resonate with all of those things, but not specifically, right? So there's a connection, but it's like, okay, I know that, but to me, I feel like
Yeah.
I'm still looking for my own very, very personal connection because I can tell you and Carla and everybody's got their personal connection with what it is that brings them to that same place, right? That the Violet Flame brings you. So I guess my first question for you is Saint Germain, do you feel that very specific connection with the Violet Flame, or as you said, when you practice, you see Mother Mary and you see Jesus and you see all of these entities, these
I do.
spirits and energies.
But I told you I've been clairvoyant most of my life,
Right,
and I was told it was an overactive imagination.
right. I do want to get back to that as well.
Um, but you got to realize when you and I did this course together, it was my second class. Now,
Hmm.
my first class I took, I was kind of like, I don't know. Oh, okay. It was kind of like this logic, the the left brain trying to take over and um, make sense out of it.
Okay,
And it's
so
something
let me
that
let me actually stop you there.
belief is your basis, right?
Absolutely, a
So
million percent.
I feel like that was a big part of it. And that's why I told you I remember feeling that way when we were talking
Hmm.
about trying to um, make it more logical,
Hmm. Hmm. Totally.
and trying to mentally do it. But you
Right.
can't really, when you're in your brain and you're doing the mental thing, you're not connected to your
Yeah, you're
spirit.
bound to certain things that beliefs that you have. So I just wanted to say Leslie is saying tell us a little bit about the Violet Flame. So I was going to say let's go back to that first class and uh, explain to us what exactly is the Violet Flame for people who don't know.
The violet flame, um, as Carla and I have discussed it, we believe it's a gift from the Holy Spirit. The violet flame is a combination of it's the Holy Spirit if you're in the traditional thought, but more more than the Holy Spirit because
Hmm.
it's a combination of the Christ energy, the Mother Mary energy. Saint Germain ties it all together with the central sun and all three energies. So, what I literally see when I close my eyes, I see a violet, um, not necessarily in the form of a flame, but a violet light.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Energy.
when I
Energy.
see that violet light come to me, oftentimes I can see the outline of Saint Germain.
Hmm.
And oftentimes I feel like oftentimes I'm very, very connected with Mother Mary when I'm working,
Hmm.
when I'm encountering babies. And with her, I see more of a pink color.
Hmm. Hmm.
And the divine energy is blue. And then you have the Christ energy that's golden white. And I believe that combined energy becomes the violet flame.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's
That's
my processing of it.
okay. No, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. It's a combination of these different energies. Wow. Okay. And then so and I mean I kind of know a little bit because we did do the class together, but tell us about what you said when you wake up in the morning, you say, I am the violet flame, I am the love of God. What does that mean? How does that work?
Well, before I start my day, I want it to be in a positive light of energy. And my dog Rocky sleeps with me. So in the morning, I got this little puppy face right there. So, I can't help but smile. And I'll just say, I am the violet flame. I am the love God is. And I'll say that until I just feel totally at one with it. And then I start my day
Hmm. Hmm.
because now I'm centered in the God energy
Right.
or
So
source energy, whatever you want to call it. It's the same thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So again, for me, and I think I discussed this in the class. I feel like that's all about intention. That's all about bringing in that intention of believing this is going to be an amazing day. I am amazing. I'm filled with light. I am protected from darkness, and all of these different intentions, kind of like you said, combined all of those energies,
But
uh
those are more affirmations,
mhm, mhm,
um, which are nothing wrong with that.
mhm, mhm,
Um, and I used to start my day that way. I
mhm,
used to, before I did the Violet Flame class, I would create the day. I would
mhm,
visualize my day, what it would look like from the moment I woke up to making my coffee, to walking out the door to work, to what my assignment would be. And it almost always was what I created in my head.
mhm, mhm.
Um, so it wasn't just in my head, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. And those are the things that I resonated with. I'm like, I get this. I get this. I just gotta, like you said, wrapping my own logical belief system around it was where I struggled. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, again, I loved it. I loved talking to you ladies and just like hanging out with you guys and talking about the things we did. We had some really amazing conversations. We exchanged a lot of really great energy, with each other. And I think that's a big part of even not specifically the violet flame, but the reason that the violet flame brought us together, was for us to kind of empower each other and you know validate each other's energies and be like, yeah, that person is awesome. And we could all walk away from that meeting going, wow, I just hung out with two awesome people and I know that they think I'm awesome. You know what I mean? So it was like
Exactly.
a complete great exchange.
And we're all doing we're all spreading our message to the world in a
Mhm,
different way. That's
mhm,
all.
mhm,
And for you, I think I would love to see you do some more classes. I think you would see what I'm saying.
mhm,
After I got past the whole logic part of it, um, I would feel it. And it's energy. That's what it is. It's energy.
mhm.
And once you release the the logical aspect of it and just go with belief and feel,
Mhm.
I think you get it more.
Yeah, absolutely. And this conversation has me thinking about my own routines, right? I don't My routines are not as I don't want to use the word strict, not as regimented, I would say, and I'm thinking to myself, well, okay, why don't I do that? And believe me, there are nights that I lay in my bed, and as I'm laying in bed, I'm like, I'm gonna fall asleep. I am the violet flame. I am the love God is. I've actually and I think I told Carla, I say this, I said, I am the violet flame. I am all that God is. Which I loved the fact that that even came out of my mouth. You know what I mean? It was just
Yeah.
like, it just came out. I was just like doing the mantra, and that's what came out. And so I'm there in my own way, but I definitely am lazy because I feel like I can conjure certain states of being and understanding, if I get into certain situations, right? So it's like I don't have to wake up and do my exercise because I know, like, if I need to flex my muscles during the day, I can flex them, if that makes any sense. Like if I run into aggravation or if I run into something, I know that it's easy for me to access my higher self and that be calm in the moment. And not to say that every day runs perfectly and I don't stress out some days. You know what I mean? I certainly
Oh,
do. I certainly do. But there's also a higher understanding of how momentary that is. You know what I mean? And how insignificant that energy is in the bigger picture, even though it may seem at that moment, to be everything. And I think, again, that allows me to be a little lazy in my practice. And again, I take that back. See, I'm taking that back. I didn't mean to speak that
mm-hmm.
out loud. I don't want to be,
Yeah.
I understand. I certainly understand the people that I see who have more regimented lifestyle with practicing certain metaphysical things. I certainly see the benefit. You know what I mean? I
But
see
Mike,
the
you
connection.
can't, Michael, you can't compare your experience with others because your experience
Exactly,
is
and
yours.
you know what? And I don't, and that's
Yeah.
how I rationalize it all. That's how
But
I
your
that's how I say,
experience is your experience,
yeah,
and we
yeah,
each experience life and everything else differently.
absolutely.
I just feel like, I don't know about you, but it sounds like it. Since I did the flame class, when I get road rage while I'm driving down the road, it lasts less long because I'm
Right,
like, I'm not,
exactly,
no, and I send love
exactly,
and blessings to that person, and I
exactly.
move forward in the day. So I don't allow all those little hiccups in life to ruin my day,
Right,
you know?
right. And that's the other thing. So besides the idea of, the way I defined the violet flame as intention, I also would define it as wisdom. You know what I mean? It's also, being able to draw on that wisdom, um so I certainly, like I said, I feel like I all of the things that I encounter, I take them into my own experience, and I make them work for me. You know what I mean? Or I see how they may already be working for me. I'm just like, oh, you know what, I already do that. You know what I mean? uh,
Mm-hmm.
which is great. But then there's certainly things that you learn. You're like, oh man, that I wish I knew that a week ago, because that certainly made things easier. You learn new things. I mean, I
But
don't.
then you integrate it, right? When you see that, you're like, oh, yeah, that didn't work so well for me. So let me try this new one,
Right,
you
right, right,
know?
right,
And
right.
that's how we find our space,
Right. Well,
I
you know
think.
what? Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what's so cool about this right here. You know what I mean? This
Mm-hmm.
is this is something that I found that, I've been basically kind of explaining to people, like, it's a commitment I made to myself, to be here every Thursday, to find somebody interesting to talk to, and just be in that conversation with intention, and know that there are other people who also want to listen to what's going on. You know what I mean? And that's why this platform is so cool. Because I mean, people sometimes, you didn't get nervous, you didn't say anything to me, you were just like, you jumped right in. But oftentimes, I'll have a guest on and they'll get very nervous. What are we going to talk about? This, that, the other thing. I said, we're just going to have a conversation. It's just you and me. Forget about the fact that we're live and that people are listening, or any of that. Just talk to me. I mean, I want to connect with you, and maybe there'll be some other people out there who need to hear your story. And you
Right.
know what,
You know what? And if
it's
you,
not even maybe. You know what I mean? It's like,
right,
that somebody's going to hear it, that needs to hear it. And Ninja Kitty just said, this is my happy place. Like,
100%,
yeah,
because even if you touch one life, that's a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's amazing because I think what I want to do, and not that I have to sell this service to you or to my audience, but just to talk about it and bring it to life is I did this show with Sunshine. I had Sunshine on the show and she loved it and we became good friends and we talked and we did a painting with Sunshine show and we talked about doing a show and we talked about the Ripple Connection as a name. And I said, you know what, I think I want to take the live stream because I was doing it with Jesse at the time. I said, I think I'm going to continue with that name. And so she took the Ripple Connection and kind of, that is actually a ripple. It's amazing. It's like an
Mhm.
actual ripple of what we're doing here. And my girlfriend does a show on Sunday mornings called Unique Peace, where she talks to people about what brings them peace. And I've actually been like setting up people and training them how to do this so that they can become their unique self. I mean, I'm watching my girlfriend go through an amazing transformation just doing this exact thing right here, having conversations with people, like reaching out to people she wouldn't have talked to normally in this, forum, and having these
Oh,
amazing conversations. And it does
well,
so
that's
much
awesome.
for, yeah, it's done so much for me, for my self-esteem, for
Mhm.
just for my feeling of purpose, and again, I thank you so much for being here. You're awesome to talk to. Like I said, we had such a good time at those classes, just kind of just chilling, hanging out and talking to each other and relating stories. Again, even going through at the time some of those horrible things that you were talking about. You were going through them, but you were still like, I still saw this amazing light on the other side, and I feel like I'm blessed to be able to see that. You know what I mean? I don't think everybody sees things the way I do. So I feel certainly blessed to see the things the way I do. I feel blessed to, be able to give a forum to people like yourself, and just, have these conversations. So it's always great. And Ninja Kitty saying she's always looking forward to Thursday nights with Mike. Thank you so much for always being there, Ninja Kitty. I appreciate it. So yeah, I've built up some cool relationships with people. Oh, The Strange and Wonderful is another show that was like an offshoot of this show. It was one of the listeners wanted to do a show and I helped her set it up. And
Oh,
um
that's awesome. Yeah.
yeah, so just a bit, Cyndi, I don't know if we talked about this. I have my audience knows, but The Strange and Wonderful is a show where I talk to people who are just kind of like very odd. So the host of the show is a girl who has a relationship with a doll, and I thought that was super interesting, and I wanted to talk about how does that happen, what does that mean, you know what I mean. I didn't want to judge her, I didn't want
Mhm.
to do anything except talk about it, and that made me realize a little bit about who I was, and how like non-judgment that was, and how much I wanted to help her. But it gave me the opportunity to talk to such amazing people, like the Lizard Man, who is this guy who's tattooed from head to toe with lizard scales, and he's got all sorts of body modification. He's got statues of himself in all of the Ripley's Believe It or Not museums across the country because of who he is. He's like a sideshow performer, but like most people would think, oh, that guy is a freak. And all I could think of, like, wow, this guy is living with so much intention in his life. Like he is intentionally created who he is specifically to be what he wants to be. And one of the things that made me realize that is telling some people who I was going to have on the show. They were like, ooh, why would you talk to that guy? And I was like, wow, that guy doesn't have to deal with anybody who doesn't understand him because they don't want to talk to him. You know
That's
what I
true.
mean? So
Yeah.
he sent this intention to, I don't want to have to deal with these people who don't understand me, and he never has to deal with them. You know what I mean? It's like it was so brilliant to me, and filled with such what people would think would be a strange act and almost like an act to keep people away was really such an act of like self-love and intention. It was just like, so again, it's like I know I'm a weirdo. I see things in strange ways, but I feel
No.
like I feel like you said at the beginning of this all, we are one collective consciousness, even though it feels like we're different from each other, we're just having different perceptions of that oneness, and what that all means. And the fact that we can sit here and talk about it and relay experiences and smile and love each other, I'm just grateful for that. And Ninja says, Jessica's saying sound healing is amazing. And Ninja is saying every person you've had on the show has been truly fascinating. Thank you. I agree. I think it's been a great journey. I'm grateful for all of you people out there listening, anybody who's listening at any time, and all of the people who have joined me on the show. um, Cyndi, you're amazing. I just want to I want to ask you for some words of wisdom before we go, but also you mentioned briefly the Facebook group that you started for people who are suffering from grief. I know it's a private group. It's not open to the public, but if somebody was, experiencing some grief and felt the need to reach out to a supporting group, do you take new members by request, or is there
Oh
something?
yeah. I do a questionnaire. Just only reason I do that is to protect those that are grieving, because there's so many vultures out there.
Sure. Yeah.
And I just don't want spammers and people coming in
Hmm.
while people are trying to process a loss.
Hmm.
So the name of it is Phoenix Rising, and it's my name's on the screen, Cyndi Flowers. It's one of my groups. If you can't find it,
On
you
Facebook. It's a
can
Facebook group.
contact me and ask me about it, and I
Cool.
can I can put the link up for them to check on it.
Awesome.
And I
Yeah.
also wanted to tell you, when I figure out the microphone thing, was we talked earlier, I have some technology challenges. To do a sound bath and to really feel the vibration, I need to find the right equipment.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
would love to do a nice sound bath for your group sometime
Awesome.
once I figure out the technology I
Well,
need.
there you go. You've given me the motivation to help you figure that out. And you know what? I would love to see you do a weekly show on your own.
Oh, thank you.
A weekly sound bath. That's again, this platform is great. I think some of the best response in the Fool's Journey episode, the Brian the Wizard, who's the guy who is the main guy. We've done some like live demos. He's done a fear banishing kind of uh ritual and some really cool stuff, and I think people really respond to that. They like being able to participate. And I mean, the easiest thing to do is coach and breathe. Okay, breathe in
Yeah,
through your
yeah,
nose, you know what I
right.
mean, and everybody get on that same wavelength. I mean, that's really a great way to conjure energy, in a group remotely like this. It's
Oh,
really
heck
actually
yeah,
it's
yeah.
really cool. Yeah.
Group, a group is so much more powerful.
Yeah.
And when I feel so at one with Mother Earth, and I'm feeling that vibration that is the universe, um, I really feel that um, if we can all come together on that level.
It's a great place to connect, like as you're in
Mhm.
that frequency and floating around. Leslie's asking, when you're young and clairvoyant, what are you seeing by being sensitive to, if there's time, of course, unless you have
Okay,
to run. But
well,
it's a good question.
um, when I was young, it was actually kind of weird. When I was young, my mom would say, "Oh, you just had a high temperature." But I would have her close my closet door. And I know a lot of kids, they're like, they got monsters. But they weren't monsters, there were people in there that I would see. And, um, I was almost afraid to say that I'm seeing them, because I knew what my mom's response would be.
Mhm, mhm.
So I kept a lot of that stuff to myself till I understood clairvoyance. But I would see spirit, and
Anybody that you
sometimes
knew
I
from
would
the
see
past?
people that I loved
Okay,
that
that's what I was going to ask. Yeah, if it was
passed.
anybody you recognized, like somebody you can, say, "Oh, I saw this person or that person."
Well, for example, when my husband passed, and I moved, I wanted him to know he was welcome to my new home. So I'm like, you welcome to come there, honey, and this is where I'll be. And the
Oh,
first night in the home, I heard him call Cyndi, Cyndi, and I could hear him so clearly. And my
ooh,
dog even perked up,
I
looking
just got
around.
chills.
And it was him. He just wanted to make sure he was in the right house, you know?
That's so beautiful. That's such an awesome story. I just got
Mhm.
chills. Thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, one of the things that I said, thank you for reminding me, Leslie, I wanted to talk about the idea of when you're young and adults saying, "Oh, you just have an overactive imagination," or you have a fever. I hadn't heard that one. And that's funny because I can remember when I did have a fever, I can remember certain different
Yeah.
experiences, that I was having in my brain that were kind of repeating, um and I don't even want to go through that, but
But parents will pass this off as
I'm
hallucination.
wondering, yeah, my question is this: is it do they believe it? Do they, like, in other words, are they saying, "Oh, you're, like, you have an overactive imagination," writing it off themselves, or are they like, "Oh, I just don't want to talk about what it actually might be."
I think that's it because I have to tell you, I was always kind of, I'm 66. So
Mhm,
back when I was more in the metaphysics, you were weird. You just were
mhm,
weird.
mhm, mhm,
And my family would be like, they'd come to me, like my step grandmother, but I've known her most of my life. My biological grandmother passed when I was quite young.
mhm, mhm,
And she said, don't tell anybody. But this is what happened. And she told me the whole story of how she saw my grandfather sit. She was in Germany at the time visiting her daughter and saw my grandpa sitting in the rocking chair and his eyes were as blue can be. And she went through the whole story. But yet they would come to talk to me about their experiences, but they didn't want anybody else to know.
wow,
So I
mm,
feel like you're right. I think it's more that they don't want to just go there.
right, right, right. Because I was thinking, like, it's just like, oh, they're just at that point they forget about those things and they're just like, oh, that can't be real. You know what I mean? And not believing you. But I would like to think that, yeah, they do believe you and they're just not ready to kind of deal with it, you know. Because I know my girlfriend, her son is 16, and I know they've had some conversations because she was clairvoyant as a young child and didn't have anybody to help explain it, and she wants to, be like, it's okay, you can tell them to go away and things like that, like,
Right.
kind of accepting it and not telling him he's got an overactive imagination, which is great. I think a lot more people are kind of probably raising their kids that way these days.
But I think people are becoming more acceptant of what
Metaphysics
we
and
don't see,
yeah, 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 absolutely.
with
Thankfully,
our physical
thankfully that
eyes.
I think that's the hope for mankind, is that we embrace the energy that's around us that we've just lost touch with, and certainly can connect with if we just open ourselves to it. you know
Mhm.
and that being said, I would love you to give my audience some parting words of wisdom, maybe in relation to the violet flame, if you feel so, or just anything that might come to you. um
Well, and I'm assuming anybody on here is really in search of, you know. And for me, what I have found is I find my center, my balance. I feel myself in the energy of Source, God, One, and then I invoke the violet flame. And this sense of peace comes over me. Um, and when I say I am the violet flame, I am the love God is, I also say I am the wisdom God is, I am the
mhm,
clarity God is.
mhm, mhm, mhm,
Whatever I'm in need of at that moment,
mhm,
and it's given to me.
mhm.
So,
Awesome.
prosperity, the abundance,
Mhm,
whatever
mhm,
it may be. But I find that if long as I bring myself into that center balance point before, it's just so much more powerful.
awesome. I love it. Absolutely, absolutely, I agree with that. Well, thank you so much for being my guest. And we'll
Thank you
talk
for
about,
having me here.
yeah, we'll talk about your equipment, and we'll get you back on to start doing some live music on this show. I think the show could use some new segments. The conversations are awesome, but let's spice it up a little bit, you know.
I would
Uh,
love it. Thank you.
yeah, yeah. And Ninja's out there. She's saying thanks so much, Cyndi. Um,
Oh, you're welcome, love.
and we love it. Thank you. I'm going to put you in the green room,
All right.
and I'll
Thank
say
you.
goodbye to my audience. I'll see you
God
soon.
bless you all.
Yes, that was awesome. Another amazing episode. Thank you, Ninja, for being here and always encouraging me to remember that it's always an amazing episode. Um, the special thing about the episode, the reason I rang the bell at the beginning, nobody got the answer, but this was episode 100. This was my 100th episode, uh, at least around 100, because I think there were a couple of episodes that I didn't number, or I misnumbered or whatever. But that was the reason for the bell. Jessica saying that was a great episode. Leslie saying 100. Yes, 100. I have reached a milestone. 100 live streams of consciousness, 100 moments that I have archived forever, and I can always go back and kind of relive these amazing conversations. I love it. So thank you, Cyndi, for being my 100th episode. Next week, I'm super excited. I was originally going to have actually Patty and Pratik, uh, two Tibetan bowl players, a couple that plays Tibetan bowls. Really amazing, amazing couple that I met on the Fool's Journey. But there was some misscheduling that happened, and luckily I got in touch with them early and found out they weren't going to be here. So the 100th episode club. So I did some scrambling around, and I spoke to one of my favorite people. And she agreed to be on the show, and she's trying to get her dad to also be on the show. She is a spiritual billionaire from the Spiritual Billionaires group with Karen Garvey. I'm talking about Samantha Leah. I'm super excited to have her back on the show. She's an amazing young singer who her material is super spiritual, Kundalini awakenings, and my own energy, and just talking about things that we talk about here. And her dad is actually also an amazingly spiritual person who I met at the Karen Garvey seminar originally, before I even knew Samantha was his daughter. So I am super excited for next week, whether it just be Samantha or Samantha and Marty. That's what's happening next week. So thank you guys for being here. Another amazing episode. I'm starting to feel a little more comfortable after 100 episodes. I think I'm getting good at this. And I'll see you guys next week. Peace.